I know you had really increased use of of Amtrak last year. Congratulations on that. At the same time, we do have these problems now with weather today. Could you tell us what's going on with the Acela and why we've got a problem with it?
Okay, thanks, David. Pleasure to be here today. So yes, you were talking about the problems we have with water and weather, and it's certainly true that some of the tracks are close to shorelines, which was a problem a few days ago. And also the cold weather we've been experiencing this week has been a problem, especially with the older Acelas, which we're hoping to replace with the new ones coming later this year. But we want to make sure we run a very reliable service, so we have proactively canceled some services so that the ones that do remain are reliable.
And I know you have some ambitious plans for Amtrak. Could you tell us what you need to get in order to be able to do this? I know some billions of dollars have actually been committed just this year, both for bullet trains and also for that Northeast corridor.
Yeah, so really exciting. We, from the IIJA, we had essentially enough money to replace our entire fleet over the next decade. And the new Acelas are going to be part of that coming up this year. And also we have about $20 billion worth of projects between Newark, New Jersey, and New Rochelle, New York, that will, in the coming decade, mean the replacement or renovation of 8 tunnels and 4 or 5 bridges along that 25-mile segment.
So looking at long term, though, I mean, as you try to sort of grow this business, and it is a business, is this an increase in ridership along existing lines, or is there somewhere else outside of sort of the more profitable Northeast corridor or some of the lines you have out in California where you can see an increase in ridership?
Sure, absolutely. Great question. It's really both. So our ambition is to double our ridership to 66 million riders a year by 2040, and that really comes in equal measure between growing the Northeast corridor service, which we just spoke about, doubling that itself, and that involves some of this new infrastructure that I just mentioned, and also more rolling stock, some of those new trains that were paid for by the IIJA. But it also is going to mean expanding service to new markets. Some of those were funded in the recent Fed State awards that the FRA announced, including programs in California, as you mentioned, and also some really exciting ones closer to home in Virginia and North Carolina.
When you say sort of expanding the infrastructure, because when I hear doubling the number of passengers, I think about not just the general infrastructure of Amtrak, but some of those choke points, of course, getting in and out of New York. I mean, you can have smooth sailing in, you know, the 50 miles or so before you get here, but then when you get to that last mile, you're talking about, you know, having the right of way and something that you don't always have, particularly down there in DC as well. So how do you address that? Is that an infrastructure problem, or is that more of a political problem in dealing with the jurisdictions to get something opened up?
Well, certainly it takes a long time to get everybody to agree to all portions of the projects, but you're beginning to see real results of the infrastructure bill and the funding that came from that and previous work. So, for instance, as you leave New York going towards Washington, D.C. today, as soon as you come out of the tunnel underneath the Hudson, you see this enormous bridge going up on your right-hand side, which is the new Portal North Bridge that New Jersey Transit is developing together with us. And you'll see that we're well underway. We're about 40% finished with the new structure. And that's a great example of where additional capacity will be brought to bear and increased reliability so that we can run more trains and bigger trains through that area, which will help the growth cause.
Roger, I'm curious about what metrics you follow to determine whether your service is improving or not. For example, with airlines, when we fly, there's on-time arrivals. Do you track that sort of thing for Amtrak? Where are you on that, and is it improving?
Absolutely. I mean, I track 4 big numbers. One is revenue, which is always important because we're under a mandate to make the best use of the taxpayers' money and also pay for as much of our operation as is feasible. I track ridership, which is a very important part, another important part of utility and public benefit. And that's the thing that really has snapped back. We grew almost 25% year over year. And actually, we're back to pre-pandemic levels in a lot of the country and even higher than that on Northeast regional services. We look at customer on-time performance, so not really sort of when did the train physically arrive at its terminal, because it often doesn't have many people on board by the time it arrives at the last station. But we really look at the on-time performance of the typical customer on the system. And then we also look very closely at customer satisfaction. So we have a very elaborate customer satisfaction survey process. We also have a lot of work that we do on analyzing the data we get from those customers to figure out where the pain points are, what we can do about them. And the really interesting thing is that you can have two customers on two different trains with things like on-time performance that look very similar, but their satisfaction is very different. So we're really mining that data today to figure out how we can make the experience as good as possible for the customer.